Hello, this is chapter 11, switch security configurations. Switch security configurations. It's chapter 2, or it's under switching, routing, and wireless essential. So the areas that we're going to cover, we have implement port security, mitigate VLAN attack, mitigate DHCP attack, mitigate ARP attacks, and then mitigate STP attacks. So under implement port security, layer 2 attacks are some of the easiest for hackers to deploy, but these threats can also be mitigated with some common layer 2 solution. So in security, it's not only one maybe protocol, it's a combination of configurations to have maximum security. So all switch ports, the interface, they should be secured before the switch is deployed. You have to make sure that the switch ports all are secured before it becomes part of the network. How a port is secured depends on its function. A simple method that many administrators use to help secure the network from an unauthorized user is to disable unused ports. Unused ports, they have to be disabled by using the command shutdown. You call the interface, for example, this interface range, the type of module. For example, let's assume it's fast Ethernet, maybe 0, 1 up to 10, and then shutdown. So all unused ports, they have to be disabled by using that command. The simplest and more effective method to prevent MAC address table, now this it's under how to mitigate MAC address table attacks. So is to enable port security. So port security limits number of valid MAC address allowed on a port. So by limiting the number of permitted MAC address on a port to 1, port security can be used to control unauthorized. So like we saw in the previous, you have this interface range, this, you can specify how many MAC addresses should be attached on this interface. So if you say 1, then that MAC address is want to be attached to that interface, and then all others that appears on that interface, they won't be allowed, or they won't be accepted. Port security is enabled with this command switch port security. So we have the syntax, which is here, that you call an interface this, and before you run this command switch port security, as you can see that this statement, it indicates that the port it is in dynamic port. So you have to first run this. So this is step number 1. Step number 2, you run this command, this. And then step number 3, you run this switch port security. Meaning that now you're going to limit the number of MAC addresses per interface. So we have a note here. Trunk port security is beyond the scope of this course. So you cannot actually enable port security under trunk port. It's beyond this course. And then we have the verifying command, which is show port security interface, because now we've enabled port security. So notice how port security is enabled, then the violation mode is shut down, then and how the maximum number of MAC address is this. So by default, once you enable the port security, by default the violation port security, it is going to be enabled. As you can see, it's enabled. Then violation mode, it is in shutdown mode. That once the mode, or once the port, the port is, the port action is violated, then automatically it's going to be put in shutdown mode. And then the maximum number of MAC address allowed on that port, it's 1. Just see after enabling this command, port security. Note, if an active port is configured with switch port security command and more than one device is connected to a port, the port will transition to LR disabled. That every time if the violation action is shut down, and then the maximum number of MAC addresses is violated, then automatically the port it is transition to what we call LR disabled state. LR disabled state, it is not in shutdown mode, neither in active. So it is just there in between. In between. So we have still under port security. After the port security is enabled, other port security specifics can be configured. Those ones we have edging, we have MAC address, we have maximum, then violation. You can change the violation. Violation, you are going to see how many the actions there, then number of MAC addresses allowed, then the MAC address, that is if you want to state the address statically or even dynamically. Then the edging, the edging, if you want the MAC address and dynamic, if you want the MAC address to be removed in case, let's say, the device is idle. So we're going to start with limit and LAN MAC address. As you can see, that under the interface, once you specify the interface and then you are even running or enabling port security, you can run this command: switch port security maximum. Maximum, we need how many MAC addresses are allowed here. So in this example, the maximum is 8,192 92 MAC addresses that are allowed per port. So the default port security value, so by default or minimum, it has to be 1. Then still under limit and LAN, we have the switch can be configured to learn to learn about MAC addresses on a secure port in one of the 3 ways. We have the manual configured, we have dynamic LAN, and then we have dynamic LAN with sticky. So with manual, you'll have to run the command switch port security, then the MAC address, and then you state the exact MAC address. It will always be that. You can even state that MAC address before you connect any device on that interface. Then dynamically launch method when a switch port port security is entered on an interface, then automatically the dynamically launch method is enabled. So the current source MAC address for device connected to the port is automatically secured, but is not added in the running configuration. That whatever that is launched on that interface, it is not added in the running configuration file. What does this mean? That in case, let's say, the device reboots, the switch reboots, then the port will have to relearn the device MAC address. So this one here, it is, it's not friendly, meaning that if you restart the device, you're trying to bribe it, so that it learns the MAC address of the device that you've just connected to it. Then lastly, we have dynamically launch sticky, that the administrator can enable the switch to dynamically learn the MAC address and stick them to the running configuration by using the following command. So once you use the sticky, then it means that the switch, it's going to learn the MAC address and then stick on it by adding that information in running configuration mode so that it can be saved for later. And this is the syntax: switch port, port security, mark address, then sticky. So it will actually be accompanied with the other previous command, which is switch port, port security, then maximum. So if you state that the maximum are supposed to be 2, then it's going to learn the MAC address of the two devices dynamically. And the switch is going to stick on those MAC address so that they are part of the configuration. So here we have our verifying the configuration of the configurations and then the verifying commands. So here we have step number 1 by coding the interface first Ethernet 01. Then you have to make sure that the port it is in access mode. As you can see, it's step number 2. And then we have the maximum. How many MAC addresses do we wish or that are supposed to be stored by this port? There are 4. And then how are they going to be launched? So we have this one here, which is as you can see, it is static. The manual, which is the first one, as you can see, it is entered manually. And then we have the sticky, meaning the first one, it's manually entered. And then the other 3, they will be launched dynamically. Then we have the summary. As you can see, port security, it is enabled. Port status, secure app. The violation mode, it is shut down. Aging time, 0, this absolute and blah blah. Then the maximum MAC addresses, as you can see, there are 4. Total MAC addresses that are right now that are known by this port, it's 1, which is manually entered. Total MAC address so far, it's 1. Then configured MAC address so far, still it is 1 there. So still we can go use this other one, because when you look at this, it's switch port, show port security, then the interface. Then we have show port security address, which is general. This one here, it's under specific interface, but this one here, it's a general command for the entire switch. We have what you call port secure link edging. Port security edging can be used to set edging time for static and dynamic secure address on port, and 2 types of edging available or are supported. We have absolute and then inactivity. Absolute, the secure address of the port are deleted after every specified edging time. That with absolute, once the stated time or defined time reaches or expire, then automatically the MAC addresses, they are going to be removed. Then we have inactivity. The secure addresses on port are deleted if they are inactive for specified time. That's the difference between here. It's like once we state, maybe the defined time is 4 minutes. After 4 minutes, the 4 minutes, whether it's idle or not, the 4, but whether when it's whether it is so the difference between the two absolute and then inactive, that is this the stated time. If it's 4, after the 4 it's going to be deleted. So inactive, if the computer is or the MAC address is idle, it's idle, then automatically it's also going to be removed. Yeah? So those are the two types that are supported. And how do you state that? It's this command, it's here, switch port security edging. Then from edging, you can have the absolute, then the is it the absolute or it's the inactive. So we have the sample, which is here. You call the interface, which is this. Then switch port security edging. Then the time, the edging. Then time. What's the time? These are in seconds. And then you again go ahead, switch port security edging type. So in this you define the time, and then the next you define the type, time, and then the type. And then after that, you can run the command to verify the verifying command, switch port, show port security interface that port status, as you can see, secure down, then the validation, it's this. Edging, we have 10 minutes. Type, it is in activity. In activity. So this is it, port security, that every time you do the configuration, you can go ahead and do the verification. Then we have port security violation mode. Port security, then violation mode. Now here you have to specify the violation mode. If, let's say, the maximum number of MAC addresses are 2, and then the third computer is trying to connect to the same port, what is going to happen, or what should happen? So the command is here, switch port security, then the violation. We have 3 modes: shutdown, restrict, and then protect. They are here with the description. With shutdown, it's the default that every time you enable switch port security, this is the violation action that is set. The port transition, if the port is, or the action is, if the action or the policy is violated, then the port transitions to error disabled state immediately and turns off the port LED, and it sends the syslog message that every time the port is, or the action is violated, or the policy is violated, now it sends a notification. So in case, let's say, the port is violated or the policy is violated, to rectify the issue, you have to first shut down the port and then you activate it again. We have restrict. The port drops the packet with unknown source address until you remove a sufficient number of secure MAC address to drop below the maximum value. Still the same as the shutdown. And this mode, it causes security violation counter. We play this and then let's there. Now with this restrict, that the port is not going to be disabled. It's not going to go to error disabled. Meaning that if you connect the stated number of MAC addresses, there are 2, and you're connecting the third one it's not going to work. But if you connect back the 2, they will work. But in shutdown, if the policy is violated, then the port is disabled, and you have to first rectify that so that the legit computers or the MAC address are able to work again. Then we have the protect. It's still the same in the behavior like this one here, but still this one here, the port is not disabled. And again, it does not send the syslog message. It's not going to send a notification message. But these 2 here, they will actually be able to send the notifications. These 2. This, it disables the port, but this one here, it leaves the port active. And even this, it leaves the port active. The difference is that it doesn't send the syslog message or the notification message. So as you can see here, we have the sample interface, then switch port security violation. You can have restrict, you can have protect, you can even have shutdown. But shutdown, it is the default. Every time you enable your port security, switch port security or port security, then the action or the violation action, it is always shutdown mode. So the violation, okay, the notification that I've been talking about, they are here, as you can see, this. But when it comes to protect, protect here, it's not going to generate these messages. So every time a port goes to error disabled state, to rectify, you call that very interface, maybe G00, then you run the command shutdown, add no shutdown command to rectify that, or to move the state from error disabled back to operational state or forwarding state. Put in error disabled state, as you can see. Now, if it goes in error disabled state, this is what it's going to indicate. As you can see, this. It's not in shutdown, but it is halfway somewhere. So, rectify that, you use those two commands. So all these are for verifying, and we need the lab. This is the lab packet tracer implement port security. Implement port security. Configure port security, then verify port security.